Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this conversation, researcher chat. And I am joined again by Professor Irene from Kingston University. Hi, how are you doing?
Yeah, lovely to see you again, Liz. Nice to be here.
Yes. So you are based at Kingston University, it's London, and you work with the Kind Research Group. And we want to hear a little bit about a new study that's coming up. But before that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is Irene. I'm a nurse by background, actually, a very long time ago, but I've been doing research at Kingston University for about 25 years now, and all the research I'm doing is around death, dying, and learning disability. So, how to make sure that people with a learning disability have the best possible end of life at the right time, and the best possible support at the end of life, and how can we involve people as much as they want to and can in decisions around their end of life. So, I lead the KIND research group. It stands for Kingston University Intellectual Disability Research. And quite uniquely, I think we are quite a big team now. There's about 12 of us, including four colleagues who have a learning disability themselves, who we've trained, who work with us as researchers, and they help us to really understand the issues and how to reach people. We always involve a lot of people with learning disabilities, families, support workers, in answering the important questions that we're asking.
Excellent. And it's a very difficult area that you guys have done a really good job in working with people to understand what people with learning disabilities need when they're at that time of their life, and like palliative care needs and things like that. So thank you to you and the team for everything you've done so far. So we wanted to, the Down Syndrome Research Foundation, which is the group I'm from, and we wanted to work with you to learn more about how do we talk about this important topic of assisted dying that's been in the news so much recently with our loved ones, and how do we help them to understand things better? So we knew that your team would be the best in the world to look at this topic. So will you tell us a little bit about this new pilot study?
Yeah, it's a very difficult topic. It comes out really of a lot of the research that we've done in recent years has been around how we talk together about dying as a society, but particularly with people with a learning disability, who, as we know, are most excluded from those kind of conversations and from understanding death and dying and from being involved in decisions.
Mm.
So we have worked on creating resources to help these conversations, to help people plan. And the question that's been coming up from audiences, from people with learning disabilities, from my team, including the people with a learning disability themselves, is actually how about assisted dying? Because it's been in the news, right? We know it's not something that in England, where we're living, is legal, but it keeps being discussed, and there are some countries where it is a legal option. And so we really want to know what the issues are, how this topic affects people with a learning disability, um, how we can talk about it together, because this is a complicated topic which is difficult.
Mm.
And to talk with people with a learning disability, and involve them, we have to make things accessible and easy. And so we were all wondering together, how on earth do you make something accessible and easy? That is not easy. And that
Mm.
is almost by its nature not very accessible and easy to understand. So we wanted to do this study. It's a pilot study. That means it's nothing to do with flying aeroplanes. It's to do with trying things out. We
Yeah.
wanted to try in quite a small study, what is a good way to find out together with people with a learning disability? How can we understand this topic together? How can we talk about it?
Mm.
And I suppose that would eventually lead to understanding, if you live in a country where it is a legal option, then people with a learning disability who have capacity are not excluded from that option. And that is probably right. You don't want to exclude people on the basis of their disability, but you do want to be sure that such a very, very big choice is made in full understanding of all the issues and the complexities. And so how do you help people make those decisions
Mm,
if and when that isn't, that becomes an issue.
mhm.
So that's why we wanted to. And I knew that the Down Syndrome Research Foundation is also interested in this and concerned that we get this right, these conversations.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm very grateful for your support in teaming up with us
yeah.
to look into
And
this.
yeah, ourselves and MenCap felt like these are important questions that we have to look at and understand. And coming at it from lots of different angles, obviously, it's a very divisive topic. And I think being a research foundation, we need to actually look at it through the eyes of research and evidence and understand it better before we um, go back to the government or another country where it's being debated and talked about. Um, and when governments are kind of designing the way that this law is used, that there would be safeguards that are based in research and that people with learning disabilities are supported and protected.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
okay, so you've said a bit about what you're trying to learn, a bit of how the conversation could go, and I guess seeing how the person with the learning disability uses the materials and information, and what does that information look like for people with learning disability. Um, so when we think about someone listening to us who's thinking, oh, I'd quite like to be a part of that. Who can take part? What's the kind of parameters? What are the ages and things that you're looking for?
Yeah. So we're looking so for this pilot study, we're going to talk to probably about 20 people with a learning disability altogether. We're trying out different ways of getting information and talking with them. So we're doing mostly interviews in person. That means sitting around a table together rather than on a screen like we are now.
Yeah.
Um, Sort of one-to-one interviews, and that means that people need to be in or around London, um, ideally, because then we can travel to them. That's where we're based. So people with a learning disability who are able to understand sort of basic information about the study. We have sort of easy read information materials, and we have a short video that explains the study, and who have the capacity to consent to being in the study. Yeah. It is not necessary for people to know what assisted dying is, because that is something that we will talk about when we sit around that table. Um, but those are and adults, so age 18 or over. Um,
Okay.
People can have a supporter with them if they want, or, it's important that people have the right support around them. This is clearly very sensitive, potentially
Mhm.
sensitive. It's a sensitive topic that could bring up issues for people. So we are very careful to make sure people have the right support around them. We are also there to provide support before, after, during, and after the interview. But we also want to know that people themselves also have support, people they can talk to. Yeah.
And
So
you've learned a lot about what that looks like because of all your work with
yeah.
talking about dying over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And now we're very experienced in doing this in a sensitive and ethically sound way. This has been approved by the National Ethics Committee, who's looked at all the materials and sort of agreed that this was the right way to do it. Um, so yeah, as I say, people do not need to know much about assisted dying. That's the whole thing we're trying to explore together. We haven't. It's quite interesting. It was an interesting dilemma. We haven't explained in the information materials what assisted dying is, because that is something we don't want to. We don't know how to explain it. This is the whole point of doing the study. We don't know how to explain it, and we want to not put words into people's mouths. But this is why we're saying most people who have contacted us because they're interested have heard of the word assisted dying and want to talk about it. Um, we're not trying to find out answers to is it right or wrong to have assisted dying. That's not the issue. We want to know how to help people understand it. And I also really want to know what is the impact of the way we talk about it? How are people coming to this conclusion about whether something is right or wrong for them?
Mm.
And that's sort of beginning to shine. We've done a couple of interviews already. We started the study. And that is something that is actually possible to explore together. You get a sense of what influences people's the way people frame or understand it. It's
Mm.
also become quite clear just quite how difficult and complex this is. So, people have come to the interview thinking, I know what this assisted dying means, are actually quite taken aback when you really talk about it, that it means dying.
Yes.
Assisted dying means dying. It means die. It doesn't just mean getting rid of the pain. You get rid of the pain, but it also means dying.
Yeah.
Um, and to the choice of whether you wait until the natural end of your life or whether you choose to die sooner, that's the
Yes.
real choice. And those are the kind of things we're exploring in the interviews. And it's interesting and it's important that we help
Very
people really
important.
understand.
Yeah, and I think you know that I'm a sibling of an adult with learning disability, and I've got ideas around what he can understand and what he doesn't. But it's so important that we can put it into research to actually talk about that maybe even as a health professional, which I also am, you think you're having a certain kind of conversation, but maybe you don't realize that you've done it in a way that pressures someone or by not mentioning it, that's a good thing either. So it's really helpful that you are unpacking this and watching closely how, as the conversation flows, how the person's position might change because they've had the conversation
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
yeah. So I think
Absolutely.
as
Yeah.
loved
So the
ones,
impact, and you're right, so the impact, but you're right, the impact of how we present these questions and these conversations, right? I'm interested in that too. So what is it, one of the questions is what would it be like if a doctor comes to somebody who's terminally ill and says, how about assisted dying? What is the impact of that question on somebody's frame of mind and thinking, depending on who asked the question and how is it presented? Um, so yeah, there are no easy answers, but I'm as interested in learning about the impact and the consequences of how we talk about it on how
mm,
somebody with a learning disability then internalizes or frames or understands or possibly eventually makes decisions around this. That is so important. You know, I don't think I'm not sure there is such a thing as a completely independent autonomous choice that doesn't include other people. There is,
for any,
so
yes,
autonomy, people need to make an autonomous choice, but I don't make a choice all completely by myself. My autonomous choice is informed by my conversations with the people who are important to me. So I think we just need to so many things to think about. That, um, so yeah, so we're
yeah.
still looking. If you are watching this, I'm looking at the camera now. If you are watching this, and if you are interested in taking part or know somebody who might want to take part, just do get in touch. We've got information for gatekeepers, as it's called, people who might want to support people with a learning disability to think about taking part. And as I say, we've got a short video and various information materials. Um,
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us and telling us about the pilot study that you're doing.
yeah.
And if people
I
have any,
also want, sorry to interrupt again, just to raise, because some people, the questions they ask is what on earth will happen in this interview?
oh yes,
How are you going to do this? And so just to sort of paint a little bit of a picture of that, there will be at least two people, two of us interviewing, so be myself or my colleague Christina. It may also involve my colleague Richard, who has a learning disability himself. If possible, he will be helping me to do the interview. And we have found ways to make it fun is the wrong word, but to make it a relaxed experience, we use sort of games and pictures. And so, for example, all the questions we ask, well, many of the questions we ask are in the format of a scenario, a sort of made up story. And each question has a picture with it that the person is allowed to put in the bin. We actually have a physical bin on the table. If they don't like the question, they don't want to answer it. So we give the person as much control as we possibly can about what they do not answer. And we find it clearly people can, walk out and stop taking part at any time. But we find that creating that kind of atmosphere really helps people to want to talk to us.
mm,
And so it's, yeah, I hope that is reassuring that it is a positive experience. We try to finish on a positive note so people don't take the heavy thinking home with them. Um,
Mm.
so I hope that reassures people who might
Yeah,
be worried about taking part in a study like this.
yeah. And as it says in the leaflet, if there's any problem, then it can, pause or, people aren't
Absolutely. Yes, yeah. And we follow people up the following day as well to make sure that
right.
nothing else has come up or it hasn't kept them awake at night.
Yeah,
And if it does, then we talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's really great. So who should people contact if they want to get involved or learn more?
They can contact, well, I suppose they can also contact you because you can pass that on to us. Or they can contact myself or my colleague Fred in particular. He's the person that it eventually goes to. So that's fred.english. I won't spell his email address because I'm sure there'll be a way of putting
I'll
that.
put it in,
Is there a way of putting it on the
I'll put it
screen
in the
like
chat.
this? Fred.english
Yeah,
kingston.ac.uk, as you can see here.
yes, we'll put it on the screen and in the comments as well to make sure people join in. And then just by emailing, it doesn't mean you have to take part. You're just
No.
reaching out to find
Yeah,
out
you're
what.
reaching out to find out more. I have to say that it is a short study and it's a small study, so we're hoping to do most of our interviews in May and June. So
Okay,
by the end of June, hopefully we'll have completed all the interviews. We're trying out some interviews on Zoom, but mostly we want to find people who we can talk to in person. We also have a colleague up in the north of England, so there'll be a couple of focus groups as well, trying
okay,
to see if that works. It's just a testing out of what works best in terms of talking with people.
wonderful. Yeah, and people will take part during the week. Is it Monday to Friday? Is that right?
Yes, yes, because that, yeah, I mean, if somebody can really only do the weekend, we will bend over backwards to make that work, right? I don't mind getting out of bed on a Saturday. So, so, but yeah, but we'll say we will complete it in the summer. And I'm just looking at my diary when, because we have a webinar planned on the 8th of September at 1 o'clock. It's a Tuesday where we will present what we found and how it's gone. So
Right.
we'll write articles about that and we will put it on a webinar and we'll find accessible ways of telling people what
Yeah,
happened in this study and what we've learned from it.
yeah. And I'm sure we put in the budget to support people to travel, did we? To pay for their travel.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, within reason, right? If you live in Scotland, it may might trouble. So,
Bahamas. Yeah.
sorry, people in Scotland. We love Scotland, but it's
Yeah.
it's a bit far. Yeah, we don't have a huge budget, but we can, within reason, help
Yeah.
people to travel. But we also will travel to them, right? You don't have to come to Kingston. If you're in or around London, we'll come to you, wherever
Right.
you are. Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for being with us and telling us about the pilot study. And it's such important work that even though it's hard, we have to have the hard conversations sometimes. So thank you so much for being with me and best of luck for the study.
Thank you, Liz. Bye bye.